On today's episode, I'm going to teach you what a 20-year-old movie about an all-white hockey team can teach us about hiring for diversity. If this is your first time on the channel, my name is Matt Gjertsen. I'm a former Air Force instructor pilot, former head of training and development at SpaceX, and now I run a company called Better Everyday Studios, which helps improve organizations by creating better managers. So, I used to work for Elon Musk, right? I worked at SpaceX. And Elon Musk has been talking a lot about diversity, at least in the past couple months, even intoning that he believed hiring for diversity might be costing lives, right? And he was using examples of places like Boeing, where they've clearly been having some struggles recently, saying that, if you are hiring for diversity, if you're not focusing on, what matters, then chances are you're going to bring in people who aren't as qualified. I obviously disagree with that statement. I think people have been misunderstanding him. I think really what Elon has been trying to say is that if you are hiring, if your organization is anything but a meritocracy, right? If you are hiring on any other criteria than can you do the best work, then by definition, you're lowering the standard of hiring and you're going to have poor results. I think he's using the wrong measurement, essentially. And the reason why I think this actually comes a lot from the book or from the movie Miracle. This is the movie that came out in 2004 about the 1980 US Olympic hockey team. Yes, I completely know the irony of using a movie about, a movie that's entirely about white people to tell you why we need to hire more diverse people more in our organizations. But stick with me, okay? So there's this great scene in the movie. I have no idea if this actually happened in the real world, but it happened in the movie. So I'm going to quote it, and it's going to be amazing. In the movie, Herb Brooks, the coach, is watching all the players. Right? They have this big. They have this big session where they bring in all the best hockey players all throughout the country. These are college players and everything, and they're playing out on the ice and they're trying out to make the U.S. Olympic team. And the plan had been for this to go on for several days as they slowly wean down to the number of players that they need. And halfway through the first day, Herb Brooks turns to his assistant coach and gives him a list of names. And the assistant coach is like, "Is this it? What do you mean? These are the players? Like, we just started. How could you know the players?" And he specifically says, "You're missing some of the best players." He's looking at the list and he knows who's here. And he said, "What are you doing? You're missing some of the best players." And Herb Brooks turns to him and says, "I'm not looking for the best players, Craig. I'm looking for the right ones." And what he meant by that, and he goes on later in the movie, because a big part of this movie is it's the US team versus the Soviet team. The Soviet team in hockey at the time had been dominant for 20 years. They haven't lost an Olympics in 20 years. They've rarely lost games on international play. And there's this great other scene where he says, all-star teams win by relying solely on the talent of the individual, whereas the Soviets win by using that talent in a system that is designed for the betterment of the team. And this is why I love that initial quote of, "I'm not looking for the best players. I'm looking for the right ones," and how it applies to diversity. Because a company or a team is not just about adding up the individual talents of all the people on that team. That's not how it works, right? Something else happens depending on who is in that team to give you the skill level of the team as a whole. It's not just one person plus the next person plus the next person. There's something else. As a manager, it's obviously not your job to be the best performer. It's not your job to hire the best performers. It's your job to create the best team. Okay? And very often that might mean hiring not always the best people. And let me illustrate this with a really simple example, because it can seem, I don't want to get confused. Let's say you're trying to hire someone for your team, and there are only two criteria that exist in the universe. Like, we're making a fake universe here. There's two criteria. There is GPA and gender. That's it. right? Those are the only things that exist. You already have a team of all men, right? You have 6 men on your team. You're looking at 2 candidates, 1 man, 1 woman. The man has a GPA of 3.8. The woman has a GPA of 3.6. I believe the more qualified person for that situation is the woman, because of the not just like the diversity they would bring of some like high idea that we're just seeking it because it's because of the diversity of ideas, the diversity of thought, the different take that they are going to bring into every single situation. Because if you are creating your product or solving your problems or doing whatever from one point of view and only one point of view, I guarantee you your product, your solutions are not going to be as good. They're not going to be as effective. They're not going to be as popular, right? So don't even think about, diversity as a right or a wrong thing. Diversity, again, diversity is about, it's a way to improve the quality of the idea, thought, and end results of your team. And this is diversity in all senses, right? I used the gender example, but the same would be true of if you have a team of only, higher income and no lower income, or only one race, or only one anything, right? If you're only looking for, if everyone, and again, this could also be true of, you could have a very standardized team with very little differentiation, but have, African Americans and white people. Like you could have racial diversity, but not other forms of diversity, right? And I think when we're hiring for diversity, again, so going back to the initial thing of what Elon said, I think that simply saying, oh, going off of anything but like these standard metrics of performance means we're lowering the bar. I don't think that's true, because the bar isn't hiring the best people. The bar is hiring the right people to make the best team. Okay. And then how do we make the best team? Lots of studies out there show that the best teams are going to be diverse among many, as many different ways as you can bring in that diversity, right? There's, whether you're looking at, you just want people with different backgrounds and different experiences on your team. That is what you want to have if you want to have the best outcomes. So obviously, Elon has a much better track record than I do, and I think generally he is doing this. He's trying to he's bringing in all these different ideas of thought. I think a lot of, whether it's him or other people, the push against diversity, DE&I, that we have seen recently, I do think generally is a push against kind of a watered down or an overly simplistic version that can sometimes take hold in organizations. And if we go back to more of a first principles approach, it's just thinking about, when I'm a hiring manager, what is my role? What is my job with every hire? It's not necessarily to bring in the best person. It's to bring in the best person for the team. And that means the concept of who is most qualified has a couple extra dimensions, because who is most qualified is going to be who's going to improve the team the most, which if you are in a team that only has one point of view represented, means you need some new point of views. That new point of view, new background, new experiences are going to add to the performance of your team, potentially far more than concepts or ideas of performance that are easier to measure. So that's it. That's just like a slightly different take. I think it's one that's probably out there that lots of people think about, but it's just the main takeaway, if you are a hiring manager out there, is to just say, don't just look at the individual marks of performance of an individual. Think a little bit more broadly. Think a little bit bigger, and think about how this individual is going to be adding new ideas to your team. That, in my opinion, is how you make sure you're hiring for the most effective team. Thank you so much for listening to today's show. If you are looking for help turning your organization's great engineers into great managers, me and my team at Better Everyday Studios would love to help. We deliver targeted and interactive training workshops that are designed to help build the 3 fundamental skills of any new manager: building trust, giving feedback, and setting goals. Reach out to me through matt@bettereverydaystudios.com so we can start making your organization better every day.